r/2x chromosomes. John Quilkery says, does anyone else worry about their internal feelings toward men in general? I have noticed a shift in my thinking in the last couple years that is starting to bother me more and more. Just by being on the internet, I feel like I'm constantly exposed to things about men being generally awful to women. Weaponized incompetence, leaving women to bear the brunt of child rearing, and the mental load, sexual harassment and violence, laws limiting our access to reproductive care/abortions, belittling or disregarding our experiences, entire religions focused on subjugating women, women's complaints being ignored in healthcare settings, the list goes on. I find myself regularly expecting or thinking the worst of men. Maybe it's the guy at the gas station who I feel is being creepy, but he's just getting gas, or watching a young family at the grocery store and mom is carolling the kids, while dad blissfully is along for the ride, noticing at large family functions it's the women who eat last and get up first to clean up, interpreting interactions with my male industry peers as disrespectful. Even when I'm watching a show/movie or reading a book, I spot negative behavior from the male characters, and it sours it for me. For a while if news came out about an artist or actor about them being general shitbags, I have an aversion to any media they put out, etc. It's frustrating for me because I'm not a hateful person at all, and I know a lot of wonderful men in my life. My husband is amazing, and very much equally shares the mental load/kid/work. Has never treated me as anything different than a whole person first, cried with me when our VW was overturned. My bill is the same way with my sister. My dad and stepdad both have always been my supporters and never made my sister or me feel like we couldn't do something because we are girls. I have friends with equally as adjusted and contributing partners in my husband and Bill. I have no lack of examples of loving, kind men around me, but I still have this constant and nagging feeling that men suck and I can't help but notice the most minute details of patriarchy and sexism affecting things around me. I logically understand that this is a long-standing societal and cultural issue, and that any one individual is a sum of their experiences, and large changes are difficult to come about and maintain, but that just feels like a cop-out excuse to keep the status quo and just ignore the very real and legitimate suffering women face daily. I've considered a media diet, but that just feels like cognitive dissonance, now that the veil has been pulled back for me. IDK, maybe I just needed to scream into the void, or hear other people's feelings on the subject. Too long, didn't read. I don't want to automatically dislike or think the worst of men, but don't know how to not feel that way in face of the constant exposure to adversities women face. Dressed2THR Line says, many women, I think, resist feminism because it is an agony to be fully conscious of the brutal misogyny which permeates culture, society, and all personal relationships. Andrea Dworkin. John Quilkery says, why did you have to hit me in the gut with this one? Love or Kilmer 1231 says, right. I'm MTF and coming from the privilege that was being male, I'm hurting over this one. Plentiful Pastry says, I'm struggling with the same thing, Opus. Honestly, it's not the women sharing their experiences with men that's getting to me, it's seeing the way men talk about women. I know Reddit is a skewed representation of men, but peeping in any of the dating advice or relationship advice subreddits has given me this horrible knot in my stomach when I think about dating. Like they want a woman as an achievement or a fix for their problems, but in every comment I can sense their abject hatred and dehumanization of women. Sometimes it's not even particularly disguised. The fact that a man would date and potentially marry me while simultaneously not liking me at all, or even secretly loathing me just so he can get the benefits of a wife is so terrifying to me. I think I need to spend less time on Reddit for sure, because the men here are reinforcing my fear. Winami says, it's even worse on TikTok. Julian Edge says, TT pushes what you show interest in. It's definitely easy to get wrapped in a small world of man hate there, just as you can get on woman hate TT. Craftisapfo says, expecting the worst from men and calling them out has increased the quality of my relationships with men in general. If they treat me poorly, I cut them out. I no longer make excuses for them. I explain what they've done that's hurtful, point them towards resources to learn from, and if they refuse/ignore this, then they are no longer part of my life. Since I stopped giving men the immediate respect they think they deserve and expecting them to earn it, life has definitely gotten easier. So no, I'm not worried. I'm relieved tbh. It's a lot less stressful. John Quilkery says, I definitely identify with you saying calling them out has improved your relationships with men. I think the defining difference here is that it includes taking action, either speaking up or ending that relationship. And I do have those experiences in my life that have helped my interactions with men, even when I'm frustrated afterwards, but this passive experience that is primarily going on in my head is just draining without any actual outlet. Orsilwa says, yes. I became like this when entered my early 20s, and I began to listen to women more. When you learn about misogyny you just become more aware of it. Sometimes I absolutely hate the fact that I can spot it 100 times a day. At the same time though it's a very protective trait. By the way, I do love my father and grandfather. But most men I'm not a fan of. r/2XChromosomes. Watini Allwood says, got yelled at work by a man who's not my boss in the middle of a meeting. Not sure if I'm looking for advice or to commiserate, but this happened first thing when I got to work, and I'm still angry when I think about it. Backstory, I'm an engineer for a large company. One of the parts of the company is nutrition, where we make things in bottles with twist-off caps. One of the specs we measure is removal torque of the cap. If it's not on tight enough, there isn't a seal. If it's on too tight, it's too hard for consumers to get off. Recently, a daily task was given to me to pull the torque data for the past 24 hours to go over in a morning touch base meeting with quality, maintenance, operations, etc. The meeting is at 9:30 and they wanted it from 9 AM the previous day to 9 AM that day. I told them that wouldn't be possible to have ready for the meeting and I asked to pull it before. I left the day before. So on Friday mornings we review the data from Wednesday at 4 PM to Thursday at 4 PM. On Monday we review the data from Thursday to Friday. Last pieces to the puzzle is that my specific line was down from Tuesday afternoon until Thursday evening. I was also off on Friday. Actual story, this morning I show up to work and go straight to the morning meeting. The manager of operations wants to review torque data and I tell him that it was not pulled on Friday as I was out and no one covered that part of my job. He immediately is agitated and starts yelling at me asking why no one did this, why wasn't it covered, etc. I try to calmly explain that I was out on scheduled PTO, my supervisor should have made sure there was coverage for my job, and that I would pull it when I go back to my desk. He just keeps going. Though, almost berating me over this data that was not pulled and how I need to make sure it get pulled even if I'm off, and how unacceptable every answer I give him is. Honestly, I saw red, I was so pissed. And I'm actually proud of myself for not taking his yelling laying down, not apologizing, and staying calm. After this meeting, even one of the other engineers said something to me about it, and could tell I was mad. Not only did he yell at me, but he yelled at me in a multidisciplinary meeting in front of a dozen people. The icing on the cake this morning was that my manager emailed me very shortly after asking why the torque data spreadsheet hadn't been updated since Tuesday afternoon. Reminder, the line didn't run from Tuesday until Thursday evening and I wasn't here Friday to pull the data. Normally, I would have been annoyed and moved on, but after getting yelled at by a man so far out of my reporting structure, I was ready to quit. She has been known to go behind me and recheck my decisions and requests and question me, or just reply and change it to what she thinks. If you don't trust me to do my job and are just going to come behind me and do it anyway, why am I even here? Luckily, no one was using the conference room after us, so I was able to stay behind and cry a little and calm myself down. I went back to my desk and found out my friend was leaving, so I took his office for the day and just worked and listened to music. As annoyed as I was with my manager, I sent her an email as I left work explaining briefly what happened this morning. I told her it was absolutely uncalled for and unprofessional and that if it happens again I'm walking away. And Live in Bliss says, damn, that definitely was uncalled for. One good thing is people witnessed the outburst and that there was enough paper trail to back you up on everything that wasn't done. Quitting the job isn't a good solution. A stern email to the hours on the incident could probably help. Even an email detailing how shitty their behavior was and CCing your chain of command on it could be a route you could look at. I know it's a decision you will be making, but please never let an $$H at Ellie of a person get in the way what is possibly a good job. What in your woods says, I suspect my manager will ask to meet with me tomorrow and I can discuss the next steps with her. I also thought about asking my uncle, who is in neither of our chains of command, but would be the equivalent of this guy's boss, for advice. Sakurfawn Warabit says, I'm glad you sent that email to your manager. What happened to you today was completely unacceptable, and I'm glad you are standing up for yourself. What in your woods says, thank you for the kind words. Usually, I really like being an engineer, but sometimes I really hate being a woman engineer. Legreasing 1984 says, damn, that sucks. Men always gotta yell and make a scene to feel important. Just keep doing your job and don't let them get to you. Sam Chili 68 says, how is it acceptable for adults to raise their voices aggressively at other adults in professional environments? Princess_Rainbow 99 says, nobody has in their job description the right to yell at people, and I'm at a point in my work life where I don't accept this. Any higher up person can tell me what to do at work, but as soon as anyone thinks I'm a punching bag it's gloves off for me. It's insane how many people think that being more higher up in a workplace is a free card for verbal abuse. 500 Cats Tipping Stuff says, I hate abusive bosses. Firewater says, people who are not emotionally intelligent put companies in serious jeopardy. It's not your fault the work matrix did not align with the meeting. Your_space_face says, I'm sorry you are dealing with this in a professional environment. The way you are handling it is an inspiration to all of us women who experience disrespect in the workplace. Tadjenna_queen says, I have been in your situation where a coworker yelled at me to the point I needed to hang out the phone call. I wrote an email to his boss with my boss in CC. His boss called me the next day to apologize. You need to fight to get respect. Unfortunately this can happen. Forgot_Micah says, good for you on not letting it go. I found it effective to directly tell people, please lower your voice. There is no need to shout in a professional meeting because normal people get embarrassed or they double down and really embarrass themselves. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.